we discussed with the leaders in East African community, that is Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, South Sudan, ourselves, and so on. We have a community with it. I remember I was that time East African community chair. We talked about, we could see a lot of flows of used clothes, second-hand clothes, tons and tons, more in Kenya, more in Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, wherever they were. So I raised an issue in the meeting. I said, and I told some of the countries I know in this community, I said, I know you grow cotton. A lot of cotton is grown in your country, in this country. When are we going to build our textile industries? If we have cotton, but we export it raw, the way it is in its raw form without adding any value to it, and then we import tons and tons and tons of used clothes. So we agreed, and everybody seemed to, they knew, but they were just reminded. And they said, that's the point. So we agreed we are going to actually make it very costly for people to keep pushing used clothes here, so that in the end we develop our textile industries. After a few weeks, in fact, for us, we are not even. So the industry of pushing, they went to these leaders and warned them and said, no, you can't stop.
Who did?
It was from the US.
The US?
Yes.
So they told leaders, you cannot buy this used clothes anymore.
You cannot stop buying from us used clothes or importing them into
Which
your
organization in the US was it?
Maybe you'll come to understand it when I go to the last point.
Okay.
So they say, you must, there's no way you can do without this. So some of the leaders, we had made a decision together, but under pressure differently, leaders gave up that decision to not, and we were, in fact, we were also approached and they were told, you are making a mistake, you can't refuse taking in, otherwise you will be affected. They even warned us that if we insist, we are going to be struck off the beneficiaries of AGOA, African Growth Opportunity Act.
So other aid was going to be crossed off because you don't want this. You didn't want this used clothes that was hurting your textile industry, that was preventing you from building a textile industry. Like, I don't want this. This helps us. This one helps us, but I don't want this one because it doesn't help us. They're like, nope. Either you take this one as well or we'll stop the good one.
That's exactly what happened. Now, for us, before we realized, all the countries who had agreed to take that decision had already given up, and they were already importing used clothes so that they continue benefiting from United States. In the end, we were left alone. We didn't even know. And that time led us to being struck off the AGOA list. The others remained because they accepted. For us, we were struck off the list of AGOA beneficiaries because of this argument.
That's great. But who makes those decisions? Is it like some junior people in those organizations? They're like, no, we need to keep that up.
I don't know. But we tried to argue back. We sent back messages. We were telling whoever we could reach and say, but this is not fair. Blah, blah, blah. They just ignored us.
Did you talk to anyone? But could you bring it up with someone more higher level up, politicians?
Yeah. The ones who are in charge of African desk, State Department, and yeah.
That's crazy.
So that tells you a bit of the story. Yes, that's about aid. It's about
dependence.
Yes.
So you had to rebuild the country from scratch. And one thing that everyone talked about that you focused on was dignity, which for me, it's so confusing that I had to literally search the definition of dignity because it's not something, a term that I would use. Why did the concept of dignity become so important for Rwanda after the genocide, and how would you define dignity?
Yeah. For example, when I told you that we asked these aid donors to really give us a chance so that as we benefit from their aid, we're also building our own capacity so that we don't perpetually depend on them. That's about dignity.
That's exactly what aid organizations should want you to do.
Yeah. And it's about you putting yourself in a certain position that you really don't want to be dependent forever. It's about dignity. When we are telling people, don't push to us second-hand clothes endlessly. Let's have a time we can stop this, but also at the same time we develop our textile industries. It's about, you can't think like that and act like that unless you are mindful of what is your place in this world. It's about dignity.
You even went as far as making begging illegal. Is that true? Or that's false?
Begging
for money, was that it made illegal at any stage?
In a way that I think that must have come from that, because
so it was true. It was made illegal.
It was true. Okay, it is true.
You made that decision,
and in fact, what we did, we put two processes in place.
It's fascinating. Rule of law.
Yes, we did two things. One is for those who are capable, we gave them a chance to be trained to do something so that they can live on their earnings rather than those who are not capable, either handicapped in one form or another. We have a mechanism in the government of looking after them from government coffers.
So you kind of built it into a system where it no longer wasn't degrading as begging. It was no longer the dependence that existed during colonial times. You focus really on just changing everyone's mentality to no longer depend on others.
That's exactly what it is. Because you could find some people on the streets begging, young men and women who are like 15, 16, 17.
When they could go and work.
When they could go, even started to do something. And in fact, we put a technical school which can take in up to close to 1,000 people in the western part of our country to teach people mechanics, or to be a mechanic, motor vehicle mechanic, or whatever, that category of things. And these young people were sent there, and they learned to do things. I was told, for example, the first batch that came out of that training, which went on for about 6 months, and then later on it was increased to a year. The first batch of 6 months, when they got out of that place, 70% found employment.
Wow.
70%.
Your model's becoming, like, the more I learned about what you did to Rwanda, especially after after 1994, you literally turned a country that was probably the most failed a country's ever been in Africa. It's just a complete genocide, to becoming the pinnacle of what Africa could become. And the model that you've built is something that other countries could emulate. And I know you've created an organization to teach other countries to do a lot of the similar things you're doing. Why aren't we seeing that in other countries, though? Or are we in Africa? Why is Africa still, as Christian said in one of our calls, it's always referred to as the country of tomorrow, because that tomorrow never comes? What are other countries lacking? What's stopping them from doing what you're doing?
I can really speak for myself. For others, what I see, if they wanted to do things similar or like to ours, they can maybe succeed even more or better. But a decision has to be made by leaders, and it's about politics. It's about politics. You can, and people are the same everywhere. If you brought them an opportunity in any part of Africa, if Africa is still lagging behind other continents, but what has made other people rich are the same things that they would make Africa rich. Because Africa is endowed with resources. I mean, take a country like DRC, by the way.
Congo is a good time to pivot because DRC is an incredibly rich country.
Very, very rich. But there are other countries which
are minerals.
Okay. Why would a country like that ever have to beg for anything from anyone? Why?
I should be asking you, it's your neighbor.
Yeah, but I'm just using the question to answer you to show that it's about politics, it's about management, it's about, by the way, that integrity that we're talking about. You know, to these leaders feel they should be working with their people and to make sure that they benefit from these resources and raise everybody to a much higher level. Once you don't think about it like that, then it doesn't happen.